Mikel Merino to Arsenal is done. The deal we've been waiting for so long has finally been completed. But that still leaves us answering some questions. So I definitely want to get people's opinions on it. But we also want to speak about Eddie Nketiah, because there's been some interesting updates on Eddie Nketiah that I thought we could definitely have some discussion on. I want to get your opinions on it. Before we get into it though, as always, just very quickly, do me a favour. Hit like on this video. So Mikel Merino to Arsenal has been done in a 32 million plus 5 euros. Okay, so listen to what Fabrizio Romano has said. Mikel Merino to Arsenal, here we go. Verbal agreement in place for the Spanish midfielder to join Gunners. 32 million euros plus 5 million add-ons with favourable payment terms. Contract until 2028. Arsenal were closing in on a Merino deal since end of July. Merino only wanted Arsenal. So how do you feel knowing that this deal has finally been put to rest? The player is 100% coming to Arsenal. When it comes from Fabrizio Romano, you know it's real, and we can expect to see this player in an Arsenal shirt very, very soon. It's going to be too soon to see him this weekend against Aston Villa, of which we've got a match breakdown coming tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed and look out for that video, because that will be coming. There's some interesting points to speak on that. But I just wanted to get people's thoughts on Merino. You know, where are your guys' thoughts in terms of Arsenal's midfield? Are you looking at this player and saying, this is a guy who can come in and start straight away in that Arsenal midfield? Do you hold that opinion? Let me know. I want to hear it, because some people are actually saying, you know, they're slightly not underwhelmed, but they're saying, yeah, Merino's a good signing for the squad, but he doesn't really affect Arsenal's first team. And I kind of have a difference of opinion to that, to be honest. Does he come in straight away and displace Thomas Partey? Well, no, because he doesn't play in that position. He's primarily a number 8, which is currently occupied by Declan Rice, of course. So that definitely is a discussion or a conversation that we need to have. Where does Merino come in? Does he start as a substitution and then he kind of has to earn his place, like many people over the years under Mikel Arteta have had to do? You know, players have had to be patient. He's brought players in before, you know, and he kind of makes them wait. Like David Raya, when he came in, people were saying, you know, this is a Spanish, you know, Mikel Arteta is Spanish, Raya's Spanish. This deal, you know, he's going to be playing straight away, but he still had to wait for his opportunity. I think we saw it with other players as well. So I'm expecting him to come in and bide his time. Just sit on it, just wait. He will get opportunities early on, because there will be plenty of rotation needed in that Arsenal midfield. That's something I'd be looking at if I was Merino and saying, oh, I will get a chance. And he will get a chance, because Arsenal are limited in the substitutions they can use in central midfield. Before Merino come in, it probably would have been, you're looking at a Jorginho to come in. You know, we saw him have successful spells in last season, but, you know, my opinion of Jorginho going into this season has always been the same. You guys have heard it. I expect Jorginho's minutes to decrease slightly this season, and I think Merino can come in and be that perfect addition to this Arsenal midfield. Like I said, he doesn't have to play necessarily every single game in that starting 8, and it does shuffle things around slightly, because if he's playing in the 8, then it will force Declan Rice to play in that 6. I'm sure there will be games where it'll be Thomas Partey in the 6 and Merino in the 8, just to give Declan Rice some rest. We saw how many minutes most of these players played last season. Mikel Arteta wasn't too thrilled in changing it around too much. He had his set 11, and apart from that, he didn't really rotate it. He doesn't mind bringing on players like Jesus or a Martinelli, but apart from that, there was limited minutes for the fringe players of this Arsenal team, and that's definitely something we need to build out in order to compete for a more sustained period, in all honesty, in the Champions League. I'm thinking when you're playing against Bayern Munich and you're looking for someone on the bench that can really come on and make that difference, I think a player like Merino, having him on the bench, or if he was to start, it would give you another option of Thomas Partey on the bench or a Declan Rice on the bench. It's just about giving yourself the strongest squad possible to compete against all these top teams. We've seen Man City recently. It's basically been agreed that Gundogan will come back to play for Man City. So it's all about having strength in depth. And Merino just goes some way in completing that. I'm seeing people out there saying, like I said, they're not thrilled with this deal. You know, he's an okay player at an okay price point. Don't forget, this is a player that Man City wanted to pay £60 million for not too long ago, but they wouldn't let him go. So don't let people trick you or confusing you into thinking this player isn't a great player. This player is unbelievable. It represents such good value for money. Yes, I understand this because he only has 1 year left on his deal, but Arsenal are still getting such a great player for 32 2 million euros. When you consider Arsenal are looking to offload Eddie Nketiah, who we'll speak about in a minute, they're looking for 30 or 35 million pound. Like, Nketiah is, although I like him as a player, he's nowhere near as proven as Merino, for example. So you can't say it's bad value. People still look at the fact that he's got 1 year on the deal and said Arsenal maybe should have been a bit tougher and not paid as much. But I think this is a really, really good deal. 32 million euros is, what is it, 28 million pound. That's not that much money in today's market. When you consider we paid 100 million for Declan Rice, and I know it's a different age profile. I know there's English tax. I know it's a higher level of player in all honesty, but Mikel Merino is still a high top quality player that you're getting for, like I said, under 30 million pounds. Yes, there's a 5-year payment structure if he hits certain targets, but I just think this is a really good deal. Let me know your thoughts on Mikel Merino. Let me know your thoughts on if you think he's going to come straight into the starting 11, or do you think he's going to have to wait for his turn and show what he can do. I think he'll, like I said, have plenty of minutes, and I'm excited to see him play. The next, I want to speak about Eddie Nketiah, because since we spoke about it last, this story's been evolving. We kind of had Eddie Nketiah seeming like he was going to go, and then Nottingham Forest were putting in a bid for Santiago Giminez of Feyenoord. Some people were saying this is just a diversion tactic to speed Arsenal along, to make Arsenal accept less money for this deal. And that's the kind of story that most people are thinking, they're not serious in bringing in Giminez. But don't forget, just look how many goals Giminez scored last season. He was an unbelievably prolific striker. So it wouldn't surprise me if Nottingham Forest decide to go that route, because this player's numbers are crazy. So very, very good player. But the fact that they rejected the first bid, Feyenoord, and then people were saying, well, of course they did. They offered a low amount because they know they don't actually want the player. But then Nottingham Forest going in with a second bid, and this made everyone think, is this actually a diversion tactic, or do they really want this player? Luckily, Feyenoord rejected the second bid. It would be crazy for them to accept that much money. The amount of goals he scored, he's one of the highest scorers in the whole of Europe. For them to let him go for 26 million would have been criminal. If a team like Arsenal went to Feyenoord for a player like this, they would have been charging 60, 70, 80 million for this player. So there was no way going to get him for 26. I still think, by the way, that player is an interesting option for Arsenal to maybe keep an eye on. Maybe Arsenal look to go in that direction as a bit of a chance, as a bit of a, last minute, okay, let's look at the market. There's nothing really out there. Shall we take a gamble on Giminez? See if we can get him for 35 million, 40 million euros. I don't know. I just think that's an interesting name to look out for. It's a name we've mentioned on this channel as much as about 8 months ago. We were speaking about Giminez and saying how much of a good season he was having. So the fact Premier League teams are now looking at this player and putting bids in for this player is definitely, like I said, we're ahead of the curve here, because we spoke about Giminez, like I said, about 8 months ago. You'll see videos on this channel with us discussing Santiago Giminez. But yeah, I just think it's interesting. There's news coming out from Fabrizio Romano saying that Eddie Nketiah has accepted a contract offer, which is definitely interesting. It seems like Eddie's open to the move, and that will be a good move for Eddie Nketiah. I just want the deal to get done now. We've been speaking about it so long. It's the same as this Merino deal. So many people say I get frustrated with how long these deals take, but it's just part of the market. Both teams are playing against each other. You're kind of waiting it out as long as possible and seeing who blinks first. This is a deal of being, like I said, being patient and just waiting. See who buckles. And it looks like Arsenal have got their man in Merino, but it looks like we might have to wait slightly longer for the deal for Eddie Nketiah. Hopefully it gets agreed in the next couple of days. Hopefully we get that "here we go" from Fabrizio Romano, or we even get the "there we land" from that guy on TikTok. I don't know who's going to come out with it first, but hopefully that deal gets... An interesting guy that I've seen being linked to Arsenal is Lookman. It seems to be more people coming out with a story that Arsenal might be interested in diving into the market for Lookman. Again, look, I'm not going to lie. I don't know so much about this player. Like, I'm sure there's people watching these videos who watch Lookman more than I do. This would seem to be, to me, like an interesting deal. Now let me know if I'm wrong, because like I said, I don't watch him week in, week out. Lookman appears to me to kind of be on a similar level to maybe a Leandro Trossard. I would look at it as a squad building player to bring in that maybe could offer the same quality as a Leandro Trossard, and that would be fantastic because the price wouldn't be too high. We know how little we paid for Leandro Trossard. And you come in and you bring in a player who now is our first team left winger, keeping out a left winger in Martinelli, who's probably valued at about 80, 90 million pounds. So if we can bring in Lookman for a fairly decent price and him offer that squad depth, then I would be open to it. Like I said, I don't know too much about him. I know he scored the hat-trick in that massive game, but apart from that, I don't really know how prolific this guy is. I don't really know the abilities or attributes this player has. Obviously, I've seen clips since I've seen the links, and he seems like an interesting option, but you can never tell too much from clips, and I'm not going to say I definitely want a player just based on clips. So if you know more information on Lookman, let me know in the comment section. Would this be a good deal for Arsenal? Thanks so much to everyone for watching and listening. Like I said, if you could, just before you go, hit like on this video. Just like it and subscribe, and I'll speak to you all in tomorrow's video. Gooners, have a good day.